I'll 100% take blame. Like I said, I'm fidgety in the chair. But that day, I never got a, hey, Laffy, maybe slide to the left a little bit.
Jordan's usually so good at that.
What's that?
Jordan's usually so good at that too.
I know. He's always hitting you on the volume and the mic and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, what's going on? Good evening. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Showdown live before lock. Man, Lions, Raiders. I read your thread earlier. Good stuff.
Thank
and it's a fun game. Somebody was saying in chat from the strategy show earlier today that this is a shitty game for Showdown. Totally disagree. I'm all about it. I mean, you have a wildly concentrated offense for the Raiders. You have Jimmy Garoppolo back under center. No David Montgomery today, but I mean, just watch. Neil's going to pile up some Craig Reynolds shares. I can see it coming now.
Haven't decided yet, to be honest, but I might.
Yeah, but no, I think it's a good game. And
it's a great game for fantasy. Yeah, why wouldn't you love it?
Michael Durbin said, "I love this type of game." Me too. You know why? It's not like a prime Chiefs and Chargers game where you go, well, you remember the Chiefs game? You remember the Chiefs Chargers showdowns where it was Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce.
Those are the worst. Yeah.
Everybody. And then you're just hoping that your Jody Fortson exposure comes through with a 7-yard touchdown.
Or Blake Bell. And that was the other thing. They have Jody Fortson and Blake Bell. I feel like there was another tight end in the mix there, just like Noah Gray. Like they have all these like backup tight ends. It's just, yeah, those are gross. We have, as you said, one really condensed offense. So that makes it a little bit easier. The Lions a little bit of a mess, but it's this is a nice kind of showdown because there are enough pieces that you kind of can count on, are more projectable, and then a few wild cards in there as well. These are the fun ones.
Glad you guys are with us. Coming in hot, chatting from the sin bin, baby. Welcome to the. You know what I think these people need to do? Take a second of their time, Neil.
I don't know, just relax. Maybe yeah, they need to hit the like button. I agree with you 100%. They need to, because there's no chance at this point in the season. Like viewership, now we've got NBA shows on, maybe not as many people watching NFL shows. There is no chance that we get to 500 today.
Neil, they need to atone for their sins, is what I was looking for.
Oh, I didn't say it. I didn't use the lofty words.
Atone for your sins, my friend. Yeah. Appreciate all you hanging out with us today. Like Neil said, yeah, it's NBA, but why not get some NFL lineups tuned up, fire them up while you're watching them, while you just locked your NBA. This is perfect. You got the overlap. You got plenty of time to get those NBA lineups in and get ready for some showdown football as well. Who says we got to do just one sport? Anyway, you say it's impossible that we get to 500?
I do.
Is that what you said?
I did say that. I stand by it.
I desperately want to agree with you, but I think when you say that stuff, the people rally.
When you guarantee? No. There aren't enough people to hit it today. Like there aren't enough people who are going to hit it.
I think the people rally. These people still love football like us. So we're doing Eric Lavender. Neil was avoiding the copyright infringement.
Exactly right. I didn't want Lafayette to get mad at me.
No, dude, I would love to hear that. As long as you say it with emphatically, that's all that matters. You got to come in hot.
Atone for your sins, maybe. Is that good?
Yeah, sure. Atone for your sins, my friend. You got to think that you're in front of a congregation.
Mm-hmm.
God, that is sacrilegious. Forgive me. Anyway, let's do it, man.
All right.
Let's do it. Jordan, I've already adjusted in my chair 3 times. So you're right. I do that quite often. My fault, man. My back's hurting. I threw my back out 2 years ago, and ever since then, it hasn't been right. It hasn't been right. No matter what I do. Exercise.
Do you have a pillow?
What's that?
Do you have a pillow behind you?
I should. That's a good idea. But then
there was a few Saturdays ago, I woke up with like hardcore back pain, like in like a weird spot in like the middle of my back. And it was just like I slept wrong on it. Like it's something that happens to me from time. I kind of have a bad back also but it like only comes up occasionally. And the way I got through it was I set a pillow and I had to like put it in a very specific spot on my back, but it did help me out a lot. So,
maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll give it a whirl. Anyway, Peter said you play hockey, Laffy. No wonder. I took a couple bad shots the other week too, but this is something that, like, my back after hockey, I'll wake up, I'll feel it'll hurt, but then a couple days later, it's fine. It's just continuously tweaking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether I work out 3-4 times a week, walk, stretch, doesn't matter. If you move a certain way or lift something in the wrong way, it's gone. But either way, no one wants to hear about my shit. We want to talk about some football. So let's do it. We got the Raiders on the road, 7-point dogs. It is definitely a fun game. And I think there's a lot of ways that we can view this. The one thing I want to kick the show off with and get your take. I kind of did the same with Gajeski earlier today, slightly different audience. A few things have changed though, and we do this show formatted a little bit differently. We kind of just circle the bases here a couple times until we've covered everything, you know? The target share being so heavily concentrated between Adams and Meyers, how comfortable are you in lineups tonight going, you know what? I'm going to try and get some Garoppolo, Adams, and Meyers lineups. Maybe the Jahmyr Gibbs run back. It's entirely possible that they end up playing from behind. Now, let me just set the table for you. It's also possible that this game stays close.
Sure.
You know, whatever. It's a primetime game. Primetime games have been notoriously low scoring this year. A lot of things can happen. I personally think Detroit, coming off a disgustingly bad, embarrassing loss in Baltimore, which was not unexpected, comes out firing today. The biggest issue that I look at when I'm talking passing game for the Raiders, something I actually like, that's something I think helps them. How bad has this Raiders run game been? I mean, Josh Jacobs hasn't averaged more than 3.6 yards per attempt this season. They have the fewest rushing yards per game in the league this year, worse than Tampa, worse than the Steelers. And outside of the Philadelphia Eagles, the Lions are allowing the lowest rushing yards per game to opponents. So what happens if they just, I know, don't get me wrong, I think we're both going to like Josh Jacobs at his price point. But what happens if Josh Jacobs once again can't get a damn thing going on the ground?
I mean, it's definitely possible. Like, as you said, like we've seen it all year. They've been pretty bad on the ground. It's a 1-game slate, so we're going to have interest in Josh Jacobs anyway. He has run routes on 47.7% of dropbacks this year. So clearly could be, you could hope for a few receptions to bring up that PPR total. And of course, you can always just hope that Josh Jacobs gets back to form. He was so good all of last year. It's been definitely really disappointing so far this year, but taking 72.8% of the team's carries. As I said, he's running routes on nearly 50% of dropbacks. Like he's involved enough that I think you kind of have to at least consider Josh Jacobs. He's a tough fade in one lineup. You can certainly fade Josh Jacobs. Like it's a tough spot. The Lions, one of the best team, like they're 7th overall in run DVOA. Really tough spot for Josh Jacobs, but at that $8,400 price tag, he doesn't need to put up 30 fantasy points to get there. He can do it in a 1-game slate. Maybe he gets to 15, 17 fantasy points. That might be enough at 8,400 on a 1-game slate. So I'm going to be playing some Josh Jacobs. I don't know how much exactly we have. Let's see, what do we have? We have projected for 9% captain ownership, 34% util ownership. Looks a little bit better for us in the util. Looks like the ownership is about right though. 9% captain ownership, 8% chance to be an optimal, 34% util ownership, 36% chance to be an optimal. So it looks a little bit better for us in the util than the captain spot, but I don't really know what more to say about Josh Jacobs other than he gets a ton of volume. It's a tough spot for him. It's a 1-game slate. I'm taking some shots, but not taking a huge stand there.
Yeah, I'm. If there's one thing we know, it's that Josh Jacobs is without question due for some positive regression. You look at expected fantasy points. His expected fantasy points are 20.2 per game. He's averaging 13.5. Now, Neil, let me just put that in perspective for you, right? No other running back is, it's so minus 6.8 expected fantasy points per game for Josh Jacobs. No one else is below -5. That's Dameon Pierce with 13 expected and 8 per game. So wow. If you are talking expected fantasy points, and look, this is common sense, right? You know this, you guys in chat, you hang out with us, all of our NFL shows, you know this. The volume has been so massive that eventually it's going to come together. Will that be tonight? I don't know. It's a tough matchup. I do like the passing game quite a bit. Meyers and Adams get a ton of work. I think you want to captain either of them, go for it, even though we do have Adams negatively leveraged. But man, 20.2 expected points per game, 13.5 actual points per game. That is nuts.
Yeah. I mean, and this is clearly like, this is not the spot where you would expect him to recover from it, but you get, because it is a tough spot against this Detroit defense. They've been very good against the run. But also, like, you see it happen all the time where players come to life in unexpected spots. So on a one game slate, given the volume, certainly I'm going to be taking some shots on Josh Jacobs. He probably wouldn't be in the first lineup that I make tonight, but he certainly is going to make it in. If I have 5 lineups, he'll be in at least one of those. He's somebody who I'm going to have, double digit exposure to. I don't know. I'm not going to be having him in like 50% of my lineup. So I'm going to have, a reasonable amount of Josh Jacobs tonight. Just not a huge stand for me either way.
By the way, Jordan, maybe we can figure this out. Randy Fowler said, how do you get that stupid heart off the chat? I've wondered the same thing.
No, I think we've had the conversation. Jordan can answer if he wants to, but I believe it's just something that YouTube put on there. It's nothing that we put on as a channel. It is so frustrating because you can't read. I know it's so frustrating. I hate it, but I don't think there's anything to be done about it.
Oh, it's terrible. Why? There's so many times where I have to wait for someone else to type something so I can read the comment that I wanted to read.
Yep, I know exactly. Me too.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. It's stupid. Maybe if we stopped hitting it this many times, because it's flying. I appreciate you guys.
See, this is why, Luffy, this is why we don't get as many likes, as why I don't think we can get to 500 likes, because our audience is clicking the wrong heart. They're just clicking it in chat. Instead of clicking the thumbs up, they're clicking the heart in chat.
But each one of those hearts in chat counts as a real like. No, that's right? I thought I could catch you there.
No.
Yeah, I know, right? Guys, that doesn't count. Hit the thumbs up. All right, so I guess just circling back one time, because Jacobs to me is one of the biggest parts of this slate. I think you'd agree, whether you have him or not. At that price point, he is one of the biggest factors of this slate. We have him, slight negative leverage at captain, 8.9% owned, 7.7% optimal captain. And Jordan, if you want, you can throw our top single game and showdown tools play up on the slate. It might help some people out here who aren't premium subs. Slight positive leverage at utility. Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, look, the truth is he still hasn't had that game and he's been wildly inefficient. This is not the matchup for that to happen. I just keep coming back to the fact that this guy, if this game's close, you're talking 22, 27 total looks. It's absolutely bizarre how many opportunities he gets. The only 2 times he kind of hasn't, week 2 against Buffalo, they lost 38-10. And then last week, they got smoked 33-10 against Tyson Bagent and the Bears. Those are the only 2 times, massive blowouts. So that's the risk you run. Every other game, he's seen 20-plus opportunities.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, he's somewhat game script independent, because he is, as I said, he's running routes on nearly 50% of passing plays. But as you say, like the blowouts, like they do stop using him. They go to Amir Abdullah. They go elsewhere in blowouts. So I guess he is a little bit game script dependent. You certainly want him in a game script where it's close or they're playing from ahead. And that's tough against this Lions team. It's a good team they're facing. So yeah, it's a tough spot. I'm with you. Like, certainly he's one of the players who has the highest upside on this slate. Like there aren't that many players on this slate who I'm like they have real 35 fantasy point upside. Josh Jacobs is clearly one of those like 4 or 5 players on the slate.
I think we need to talk a little bit about Devontae Adams and Jacoby Meyers here. So you have Devontae Adams negatively leveraged at captain. Now this surprises me. 6.7% optimal captain probability. I really thought that he would be higher. And one of the reasons for that, I'll get your thoughts here and see where you're coming in on this. So the 4 games that they've played from behind, right? Not all of them they were playing massively. For the 4 games that they played from behind, some big deficits, some not, but all of them from behind, all of them losses. 12 targets, 27% target share. That was last week. And that was with Brian Hoyer. 13 targets, 34% target share. 20 targets, 46% target share, and 8 targets, 33% target share. 13.3 targets per game in the games that they were playing from behind and lost. 6 targets per game in the 2 games that in the game, or 3 games that they won, whatever it was. And then you've got him squeaky wheeling it, trying to get that grease. Last week we saw it. Meyers still had 13 targets, but now that Jimmy Garoppolo is back, and Devontae Adams said the other day that he does have a big say in this offense, it's hard to imagine he doesn't see a boatload of fucking targets today.
I just had to double check your stats because I totally missed that he had a 20 target game.
Against,
How
I
often do
think,
those happen?
Pittsburgh?
Against
Was it
Pittsburgh. Yeah, he had
Yeah.
13 receptions on 20 targets for 172 yards. That is insane. I did not remember. I don't think I ever
Yeah,
realized that
dude.
he had 20 targets in that
Yeah.
game. That is so insane. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's promising that he came out and he was like, yeah, you know, I'm playing for greatness. I'm not playing for wins and losses. I need to be targeted more. And then I think he got like the first 5 targets of the game or something like that for the Raiders. Like they came out clearly just focusing on him, trying to get him looks. Yeah, I think that he is likely to be targeted a ton again tonight. And you know, I don't care that he's not like getting like long throws. He's kind of underneath getting a lot of short targets. Like he's a guy that can rack up PPR points, and in that, you know, 20 target game, certainly promising. I think that I prefer Adams over Jacobs just because it's so much easier for him to put up a big score even when the Raiders are not doing anything, because he is such a PPR monster. He gets so many targets that you don't really need the Raiders to have a big game for Davante Adams to put up a lot of fantasy points, given how many targets he's getting. The squeaky wheel narrative, you know, doesn't hurt. It certainly helps that he is, you know, telling them actively like, no, I want the damn ball. And they've shown a willingness to get him the damn ball. So yeah, I love Davante Adams here.
Clayton said, this is AJ Brown, Devonta Smith 2.0. Yeah, I mean, even more. AJ Brown's just, you know,
he's so good.
Goated right now. Like,
yeah, that catch in the end zone was crazy.
Holy shit. Yeah, that was nuts. But the difference is Devonta Smith still has, you know, low 20% target share. Not bad. Jacoby Meyers has a 26, 27% target share. You know, you look at his games, because he had a prop today, a receptions prop of 4.5. And I was saying, I don't think it's crazy if you wanted to play the over on Adams and on Jacoby Meyers. His receptions, 7.5, 7.2, 7.9. He's super heavily involved every single week, all but 1 week. Listen to these targets for Meyers: 10, 12, then 4, 10, 7, 13. Both of these guys, it's honestly almost like Adams is 1 and Meyers is 1A right now. So I like him. You're going to be paying a little bit for him, and I think that's probably where the question comes into play, Neil, is do you go to, so look at all these guys that are priced within what, $300 of each other, $400. Meyers, Josh Jacobs, and Gibbs are all between 82 and 8,600. Do you have a clear preference there? Is it going to be Gibbs?
Yeah, it's probably Gibbs is my preference, just because clearly a better matchup against this Raiders defense. He was so involved last week. Like Gibbs's usage last week was extremely promising. I mean, just like in a vacuum, if you're projecting them, Gibbs to me is the best. I shouldn't say just my opinion on this. I should look at our actual projections. Yeah, we have Gibbs at just under 19 fantasy point projection. We have Jacoby Meyers at like a 14 fantasy point projection. Yeah, it's not particularly close between those two. Who else was it that you threw in there? Laporta?
What did I say? Gibbs, Meyers, and Jacobs.
Gibbs, Meyers, and
they're all within $400 of each other.
Yeah, they're all within $400 of each other, and it's pretty clear that Gibbs projects, you know, 3 fantasy points better than Jacobs, like 4 fantasy points better than Meyers. Like Gibbs is the pretty clear from a projection standpoint. He is the number one there. And actually, I guess even factoring in ownership, like we have Jacobs at 38% ownership to Gibbs is 45. We have Meyers at 36% ownership. So like the ownership is not enough to offset the difference in projection. And if you look at our tools, it kind of reflects that. Like we have positive leverage on Jahmyr Gibbs. He's clearly too cheap for the role he showed last week. We have him a little bit over-owned in the captain spot, 16% ownership, 13% chance being optimal. But then we have massive positive leverage on Jahmyr Gibbs in the util, where we've got him at 47% ownership, 57% chance being optimal. He just looks fantastic in the tools. And it makes sense just looking at the usage that he had last week. He was elite. He had, I think he had just 11 carries, but it was like the team didn't have that many carries. And then he had 10 targets in that game. They were playing from behind against Baltimore. You know, this is, you know, maybe there's going to be a different game script here. So maybe he doesn't get as many targets, but I would expect him to then get more carries. And they kind of laid that out. Like they wanted him to be the bell cow coming into last week. They said they were going to feature him heavily before the game, and then they certainly did.
You know what I keep thinking? And by the way, I'm with you on Jahmyr Gibbs. He played 87% of snaps last week. ran a ton of routes, 65 out of 75 snaps, massive. But I keep thinking is that game to me isn't really indicative of what we're going to see tonight.
True.
Let me explain.
Yep.
I still think Jahmyr Gibbs is a great play, right? Like he's still the guy that's going to get the majority of opportunities. But we saw David Montgomery going out there and racking up 35. I think he tied a career high in carries that one game against Green Bay, I believe it was, the 3 touchdown performance.
Sure. Yep.
Craig Reynolds is not David Montgomery, but I don't think it's crazy to assume that Craig Reynolds gets a decent amount of work on the ground. Last week, they were getting cooked from wire to wire, ass kicking, right? From top to bottom. What was it? 38-6 or some shit. I mean, it was 38-6, Neil. They got smoked. And St. Brown was targeted 19 times. Gibbs, as you mentioned, double-digit targets as well. I mean, at that point, how can Craig Reynolds even have a role in this offense? And of course, he didn't. He had 3 carries. He had 1 target. What happens? What happens if this is a positive or neutral game script? Do you want to run Gibbs 25 times, 30 times? Do you want to give him the David Montgomery role, which they very much weren't willing to even share with him before David Montgomery got hurt? Or is there a world where Craig Reynolds sees like 8 to 10 carries? Because I think it's very possible that he does.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. This is a totally different game. That was a game where they were playing from behind the entire game. This is a game they're playing at home, like they're favored. They should be able to win this game pretty easily. They're the clearly better team. It is, as you said, a completely different game. And we saw in week 3, I believe it was the last time David Montgomery missed a game. Craig Reynolds did play like 29% of snaps. He was pretty involved on the ground. 29% of snaps in week 3 with Montgomery out. Yeah, he has certainly some standalone value. I like Craig Reynolds. The price is like just to the point where I'm like, I don't love it. Like if he were a $400 player, a $600 player, I might be really jamming Craig Reynolds into lineups, because I think at 3,200, like you need him to actually put up more than, 13. You probably need like 13, 14 fantasy points at the very least from Craig Reynolds for him to be optimal at 3,200. But I think that's very much within his range of outcomes. He's not getting a ton of ownership. We've got him at about 12% ownership. I am going to be above the field on Craig Reynolds because I
knew it. Did I not say that before the show?
You did. That was like the first thing you said. Yeah, I'm going to be above the field on Craig Reynolds. I'm with you. My hope is people look at the game log, they say, oh, it's just Jahmyr Gibbs' backfield. Like you don't really need to think about the backup running backs, and that he comes in even lower owned than we have right now. Probably not going to happen, but I think that's at least a possibility if people are game log watching. He was not involved in the last game, and it's a totally different game, and it's a great matchup. Like regardless, like even if he's not early involved that much, like he still has that contingent value of like, okay, either Jahmyr Gibbs gets hurt or just a blowout. Like he would become more involved throughout the game in those scenarios. So yeah, I like Craig Reynolds quite a bit as an RB2. I think the price tag is low enough that he has both standalone and contingent value. So I like Craig Reynolds quite a bit.
Yeah, me too, man. Now, to be fair, I agree with you 10,000% on the price point. Probably a little bit overpriced. We have no idea if he gets any goal line work. Right. I guess it comes down to this. If you're playing today, how are you viewing this game, right? Not you, Neil, personally, but if you're in chat, if you're watching this show, any of the 1,500 of you out there, how do you view this game? Do you think that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get all of the work, even if they're up by, a couple of scores, or even if it's neutral? Because this is a team that wants to run the football for what it's worth. The Lions want to run the football. We know that. Are you worried about the interior of the offensive line being banged up? That's another factor. I think they have strong backups, and Matt Kajeski kind of reaffirmed that on today's show, that they don't just have garbage here. But Jonah Jackson, Frank Ragnow being out, that sucks. At the same time, is that enough to say I'm not really getting any Craig Reynolds? Because Craig Reynolds isn't particularly good. We know that. He's the 3rd running back on the depth chart. But it's really only Jahmyr Gibbs and Craig Reynolds tonight. So if he breaks off like 30 and a touchdown, you're probably going to want that at that price point.
Probably. Yeah, that would probably be enough. If he gets a reception or 2 in there as well. Like, I don't know if
like
9
12
by itself,
fantasy points.
Yeah, exactly.
With a 10-yard reception or something. Yeah.
Exactly. That'll do it for 3,200. So yeah, I think it looks like a really intriguing option. Just needs to get back to like the usage that he had in week 3 with Dave Montgomery out, which maybe would be more indicative of what you can expect here. So yeah, we are on the same page. Craig Reynolds looks like a great, he's not like super low owned. As I said, we have him at 12%. He was one of those guys, like as I was writing my article, I usually I do contrarian plays and I try to include only players that are under like 10%. And he's not in that bucket where he's super contrarian, but like he's low enough owned that I'm going to have additional interest because it's relatively low ownership.
All right. Pete said, I'm not sure that the Lions are done using kid gloves on Gibbs. Yeah, right. They might be. Who knows? Maybe Gibbs has 30 carries tonight. And you go, oh, wow. All right. So this is how it's going to be until Montgomery gets back. And then when Montgomery gets back, we have to guess. We have to guess what Paul Newman said they gave Swift away to your boys and drafted Gibbs for these moments. Did they, yo? I don't know. Maybe.
We'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah. Sean said Gibbs catches too, Laffy. F the interior line. Oh, for sure, dude. Gibbs is a much better play than Craig Reynolds by a mile. That was never the argument here. The question, there's no argument. The question was, is Craig Reynolds viable? That was the only question.
Yeah.
I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs might end up being the optimal captain tonight. Nobody would be even a little bit surprised by that at all. I mean, he has the second highest top play probability. So in our top showdown tool and single game plays tool, meaning second highest likelihood that he's the highest overall scorer. He also has the highest optimal captain probability. That's the interesting part. Not Amon-Ra St. Brown, not Devontae Adams, not Jared Goff, but Jahmyr Gibbs. So objectively, Jahmyr Gibbs is a great play and arguably the best play on the slate. We have him with the highest leverage score of any player going tonight. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm just saying, if this game maybe gets out of hand or if they're playing with a lead, there might be enough in that backfield to kind of satiate both of those guys.
Yeah. Reminder that when Laffy asked me, who do you like the best of Jacobs, Gibbs, and Meyers? My answer was Gibbs. Like, so all of this talk of the reasons that we like Craig Reynolds doesn't mean that we don't like Gibbs. We like both running backs here.
Pete said Austin Hooper, 2 touchdowns. That's going to be tough, dude. He's going to need 2 targets.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I'm more on the Michael Mayer side of that one. I don't think I'm going to have as much Austin Hooper, but he is projected for low ownership. Like certainly in play, he's a guy that if he could have 2 targets for 2 touchdowns, but Michael Mayer kind of taken over that tight end room, I think.
Yeah, he's averaging like 1.4 targets per game. Hooper.
Yeah, not ideal. And now, like we have seen the past few weeks, we've seen Michael Mayer more and more involved in taking on more of that role. As I wrote up in my my tweet thread today and in my article on the site, Hooper seemed to take back more of it last week, but it was really like in the fourth quarter of a blowout when Devontae Adams was sitting. Michael Mayer was also sitting in that fourth quarter, and that's when Hooper was on the field for a lot of his snaps. So I think it might have been a little bit misleading just looking at his snap share from last week.
Yeah, I think so too. Hold on a second here. All right. How do you feel about the passing game and we're going to get to quarterbacks and talk about some captain spots here. We still got about 30 minutes, plenty of time to make this work. So Jared Goff coming back in a dome. We know that benefits him greatly. We also know this guy's been a monster against the spread at home. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 11,200. He is ridiculously good and has 34 targets over his last 2 games, which is outrageous. Also one of the highest leverage plays that we have behind Gibbs, Goff, and Sam Laporta. So when it comes to St. Brown and Laporta, the 2 top guys for this team, because we're going to get into some cellar dwellers in a second on both sides of the passing game. Don't you worry. But I want to make sure we already hit on Meyers and Adams. I want to make sure we get to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta here, the 1 and 2s in this passing game. How are you approaching them today at their price points?
I'm getting to a ton of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I am in my latest one. I had to dock his projection to not get like all of the Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was coming into like all of my lineups. I don't want him to be in all of my lineups. I'm probably going to be pretty close to the field. Honestly, he's another player. I'm not taking huge stands on here. I like playing. It's hard for me to take stands on studs. Usually, my bigger stands are going to be on the lesser owned plays. Amon-Ra looks good here. We've got him at 14% captain ownership, 13% chance to be optimal in the captain spot. We have him at 45% util ownership, 50% chance of being optimal in util. As you laid out all of the reasons that we love Amon-Ra. He's a target monster, extremely talented, in a great spot against this Raiders defense. Like, there is a million reasons to love Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you want to nitpick, like, he's coming back from an illness. It sounds like he had flu-like symptoms. So he's recovering from that. But ultimately, like, he's one of the best players on the slate. He's probably the likeliest player. Actually, he is the likeliest player. We can see his top percentage odds, 26% chance of being the highest scoring player on the slate. He's also the most expensive player on the slate. Yeah, hard not to love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to be in more than 50% of my lineups, probably slightly less than I guess I'm right around the field. The field, we've got him in about 58, 59% of lineups. I'm probably going to be right around there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not really something that I'm taking a huge stand on.
Crazy Pro. Hi, chat. What's the promo code for Owner's Box? My ad block is blocking the direct link. Hey, pause your ad block. It's the easiest to do it that way. Yeah, just pause your ad block for a second and click it. It's in the description. Jordan can throw it in chat. Did you see the super chat we got today on the strategy show?
I did, yeah. He had actually Drew D. Is that the guy who won?
Drew D.
He brought it up on last night's Sunday Night Football show. So that was cool to see it, like, in real time. I think he had just learned that he won.
Love it.
While we were doing the Sunday Night Football show. Yeah, that's super awesome. Exciting to have one of our guys come in using our tools, using our projections, and crushing again. And that's not the first time. We've seen it like 3 times already this year, where people are using our stuff to win at Owner's Box. Not a huge shock, given that, you sign up using our stuff, you get our access to our sims, which clearly helps you to win at Owner's Box, where a lot of people don't have access to really advanced tools.
Yeah, and it's an unsolved format, which makes it even better when you've got Owner's Box for sims and ownership and projections. Yeah, Drew said, Laffy, my man, I would not have been on Owner's Box if not for this channel. Shipped the 20K to first yesterday. Definitely appreciate all the content and commentary. That makes me happy because we talk about this. You know what I mean? We tell you, links in the description. I want our guys to win over there. Like, that's the way it should be, So that's what I want to see. Don't feel obligated to super chat when you do, but certainly let us know, because that stuff is awesome, man. And dude, that contest is 49% filled right now. The 30K stiff arm.
No way.
For tonight. So less than 50% filled with 25 minutes to go. Guys, they've overlaid like crazy recently. I think it's semi by design. They're a site that's trying to compete. They're going to throw overlay out there. Super flex contest for the main site. You never have to play a defense and get burned by that. And might I add, $500 first match deposit bonus. If you have the means, of course, to do so, I would certainly recommend doing it. But if nothing else, get over there, check it out, take advantage of the overlay of new formats, and take advantage of our tools to use for Owner's Box, which is huge as well. But shout out to our man, Drew D, shipping the 20K up top yesterday on the main site. That is awesome. And you absolutely love to see it. All right. Man, Sam Laporta is tough for me because he's 7,400, which I really don't think is overpriced. He's a rookie. He's going to have up and down weeks. It's just the way it's going to be, Last week, 6 for 7, 52 yards. Fine. That's fine. The week before that was underwhelming, but he was targeted 11 times, 2 touchdowns prior to that. The upside is there. The upside is definitely there on Sam Laporta. What an athletic freak at times when he's coming down with catches that you go, wait, he's a rookie? You got to remind yourself that he's a rookie. 7,400. I think it's a decent price point. And he's 6% owned in captain, 31% in the utility. It looks like, though, the real leverage is coming in. Well, not real leverage, but definite actual slight positive leverage at the captain spot. Kind of makes sense. I feel like a lot of people aren't going to love getting to Laporta at captain today when you have Gibbs and Goff and St. Brown and Jacoby Meyers and hell, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams. 6%. Yeah, it's relatively high. I kind of thought he'd be less owned at captain than we have him projected.
Yeah, but we still have some positive leverage. So
Yeah.
it would be nice if we would get him at like 3% of the cap and something like that. But even at 6.6%, or what do we have him at? It's still, we have positive leverage on Sam Laporta. I know he's been your guy all year, Lofty. You were kind of calling him before everybody else recognized how great
Yeah, he's a
Sam's
good
ball
player.
game is. Yeah, he's a great player and in a great spot too. Like he is, kind of competing, I'd say, with Josh Reynolds for that number 2 pass catcher on the Lions, kind of. So yeah, he looks great. Second on the Lions in both route participation and target share, running routes on 69% of plays, 19% target share. Looks good. 7,400. The price is about right. Like I'm probably getting to Jahmyr Gibbs before I get to Sam Laporta, but have to love his involvement in the office as the number 2 pass catching option so far. The price tag of 7,400. Yeah, what's not to like about Sam Laporta? I think he's got the talent. I think it's a great spot against Las Vegas. A lot to like here.
Should we start talking about some of these basement goblins?
Yeah, let's talk about
Cellar
some basement
dwellers.
goblins.
By the way, we're gonna hit 500 likes. We're less than 80 away. We still have 20 minutes.
You're asking for 4 a minute there, if my math is right.
Well, I guarantee there are 80 people kind enough on this fine Monday night to say, you know what? Screw my time. Take my like. And to that, I say thank you. All
Very
right.
kind.
Yeah, it is very kind. Matt's not a big fan of Jameson Williams. Let me tell you, he just excoriated him live on the NFL strategy show this morning. But you've got him. You have Khalif Raymond. It's not as concentrated as a team like the Raiders, but Marvin Jones just isn't playing. Antoine Green outsnapped Khalif Raymond last game. He's played the same amount of snaps as Jameson Williams. That's interesting. So, I mean, at this point, are any of these guys, and I'll throw Brock Wright in there just because it's a showdown slate and we know the odd things that happen at tight end. We already talked about Craig Reynolds, a backup running back. Are there any of these guys that you think stand out above the others at the wide receiver or tight end position that you're getting at a discount?
Yeah, I mean, Anton Green, I think is just, I think you kind of let it, like he's 200. He's the minimum price. We're projecting for about 4% ownership, and just given his involvement last week, like he was just, as you said, he is. I think he outsnapped. Did you say he outsnapped Jameson Williams?
They both had 33 snaps. Khalif Raymond had 27 though, so his snaps have been down.
Yeah, season high 44% of snaps in week 7 for Anton Green. And I think that was the first week with Marvin Jones out too. And he kind of played the same snaps that Marvin Jones would have played. So kind of fun to see that he picked up a lot of what Marvin Jones left behind. I don't really, it's kind of a small sample size to assume that he's going to come in and play 44% of snaps. So we have no reason to believe that was an outlier. Like it was interesting because it was a game where it was a blowout. Like they were getting blown out by the Ravens, but they had all their starters out there in the fourth quarter, and Anton Green came out there and was playing with the starters there. So hard to know what to make of it exactly, but at the bare minimum price, and given that he's getting low ownership, I'm going to be taking plenty of shots on Anton Green. He's going to be a guy I'm going to be at least triple the field there, which it doesn't take much. I currently have 13% Anton Green. He's only getting 4% ownership though. I think he makes a lot of sense as a place to get above the field. I prefer him over Trey Tucker when I'm looking at the mega cheap guys. Trey Tucker, I think, was sort of the opposite, so he's 600. Last week, he played 49% of snaps, but a majority of his snaps happened in the fourth quarter. And in that game, the Raiders were getting blown out by the Bears, and they weren't playing their starters in the fourth quarter. So Trey Tucker kind of came in when they were no longer playing their starters. Devontae Adams was sitting. They were actually still playing Jacoby Meyers, so it was a little bit weird where like they were kind of playing some of their starters, but Devontae Adams was sitting. That's when Trey Tucker was getting the majority of his snaps. So I think the 49% snap share was an anomaly for Trey Tucker. I'm expecting his snap share to come down. He's a guy who can do it. Like he doesn't need that full snap share. He's a splash play kind of guy, so he can get there without playing 49% of snaps, but he's getting more than triple the ownership what Anton Green is getting. So I'd rather take the guy in green that I'm expecting to have a larger snap share here of those two. I think those two are kind of the two like really cheap guys. Hunter Renfrow is more similar to Trey Tucker, where he got a majority of his snaps last week in that fourth quarter of a blowout where he didn't really play much early on, and then they brought him in the fourth quarter. So I prefer Anton Green over Hunter Renfrow as well. And then it gets interesting with the Khalif Raymond, Jamison Williams. So I'll lay it out like this. For Detroit, it's clearly Amon-Ra St. Brown is a wide receiver 1. Pretty clearly, I'd say Josh Reynolds still the wide receiver 2. Like he's still getting playing the most snaps, getting the most targets of the wide receivers. Not counting Sam Laporta. Laporta would be, I think, ahead of Josh Reynolds for me, but also getting more ownership and more expensive. So it's clearly Amon-Ra number 1, and then it's kind of Laporta, Josh Reynolds. Both look good for different reasons. And then it gets really interesting. My preference is probably Anton Green of the remainder, just because of his not getting much ownership and his price tag. He is probably my 4th favorite pass catcher. Not on Jahmyr Gibbs there. And then it probably comes down to Khalif Raymond, Jamison Williams. That is when it starts to be like, I don't really know where I lean in terms of preference there. I think I have a slight preference for Jamison Williams just because he has such massive splash play potential. But I think all of these receivers are somewhat in play. They're different than the Raiders in that the Raiders pretty condensed. The offense, like you kind of know where the ball is going to go. Detroit, you don't necessarily know who's going to get the snaps week to week, much less who's going to get targets. So you can play plenty of these receiving options for Detroit. Oh, and then Brock Wright also, just the final name that I'm going to be playing a little bit of Brock Wright here. I think he's $200 projected for 7% ownership, just a contrarian large field play.
All right. Atone for your sins, my friend. I'm talking to you, Neil.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, we got it, as always.
Wow. Pretty good.
Don't doubt the people.
Yeah. I make that mistake every week.
You really do. It's okay. Last question, then I want to pull up some lineups from the sim. Jordan can run that now. I want to look at the lineup generator and see what that's spitting out. We've run these on the show before, and well, the one took down the owner's box first place for that guy a few weeks ago.
Yep.
So we'll run them again and see what we get at highest simmed ROI lineups. We can also run the lineup generator, and I'll let you decide when we do that how you want to do it. What type of projections? If you want to play at Detroit, up 6, you want to play at Vegas, you want to play it down both teams, low scoring game, whatever, shootout, we can do that. But before we do, and we can wrap this up quickly, what are you doing with backup running backs for the Raiders?
I think if I'm gonna take a shot on one, my preference is Amir Abdullah. It's a little bit close, but Amir Abdullah is 200. Zamir White, also a guy who was getting run in that blowout last week. So maybe Zamir White again, like maybe he has I think he might have more contingent upside than Amir Abdullah in that he might come in if Josh Jacobs gets hurt or just in a blowout scenario. I think Zamir White becomes the guy in that scenario. Like Amir Abdullah, I don't think is getting garbage time run. We didn't see him get garbage time run last week. So you can make a case for either of Zamir White or Amir Abdullah. I think I prefer Amir Abdullah just for his like standalone value. I think he's going to get some run regardless, whereas Zamir White is more like he's probably not going to get a ton of looks unless there is some reason for it, like a blowout or Josh Jacobs injury, and he's 1,600. So I prefer Amir Abdullah. I think both are certainly in play they're both getting about 5% ownership. In a 150 set, I think I would probably end up above the field on both. Currently, I am about even with the field on Amir Abdullah, and currently I don't have any Zamir White. I'm only playing 30 lineups tonight. Maybe I'll end up getting to a share or two, but I'm not going to get to a ton of Zamir White.
All right, so here's what I'm thinking. Well, first off, how much captain do you have? Because we didn't touch a ton on quarterbacks. How much captain do you have of Jared Goff? And what about Jimmy G?
Right now I have at captain 19% of each, which I set my cap at 20% of captain, and that just kind of always happens for me unless I do something to change it because of the way I do my groups where I give boost to people when I have the quarterback in the captain spot. The only way I get to less than my 20% cap is if I tell it specifically if I thumbs down the quarterback at captain. I don't think I'm going to it in this game. I think that both of these are pretty compelling quarterbacks here. They both have, we've got the condensed target tree with Jimmy Garoppolo. So if you want to play a kind of contrarian build where it's a 5-1 Raiders onslaught, I think it makes a lot of sense to have Jimmy Garoppolo in that captain spot. But also, like, Detroit has so many intriguing pass catching options and some that are just project really well in like Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jahmyr Gibbs can be included in those builds, Sam Laporta, Josh Reynolds, et cetera, et cetera. So I like both quarterbacks at captain. I think both make for interesting captain options, particularly for onslaught lineups. We do have Jared Goff slightly over-owned, 10% captain ownership, 9% optimal. We have Jimmy G, 6% captain ownership, 5% chance of being optimal. So I am, I guess, going against the tools with Jimmy G, especially. We have negative leverage at 6% captain ownership, but for if you're building for an upset, I think that he makes an intriguing captain option.
Well, why don't we see what the tools are giving us then, Neil?
Yeah, let's do it.
Pull it up, Jordan. We'll throw the sims up on the screen. By the way, guys, if you want all of our tools, link in the description and in the chat. You'll love them. Hands down. The sims tool for Showdown, main slate, afternoon, literally every Showdown slate of the week. Like any obscure slate, you got it. Not just the big ones, everything. Every express slate, you name it. You go in, you don't need an optimizer for any of our tools. So you get this, you don't need any add-ons. You just, if you decide you want to sign up, awesome. If not, you just feel like watching it on here and gleaning what you can from that, that's great too. But if you do decide to sign up, just always don't hesitate to ask questions. We have so many videos on how to use the optimizers or the Sims tool. Greg just put a bunch out for NBA. All of our NBA tools are 20% off until tomorrow. So the first week, it ends tomorrow with the link down there in the description as well. If you wanted the lineup generator or the full NBA package, every single tool we have, 20% off. So pick your poison. Either way, let's look at this one. So I'm pinning it right now. I'm pulling it up so we're all looking at the same thing. All right. So first things first. On the left side, you see the simulated ROI. That is of each lineup, right? Now, what the Sim's doing is in the contest generator, which we didn't show you because it takes, I'm not going to throw it up on the screen while we do that. You're generating 10,000 contests. You're trying to simulate what the field is going to look like. And then when you go and sim these, it is basically your own lineup filtering process. Now, I'm dumb. I can't build that stuff myself. That's why I like this tool. I can't build a lineup sorting process by myself that ranks all the best ones, factors in ownership, factors in projections, and all of that as well. But the first thing that stands out to me, the top 3 simulated ROI lineups are all Jahmyr Gibbs captain, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
That is interesting. Yeah, and that's not a huge shock. Like Jahmyr Gibbs just projects really well, point per dollar. Like to see it. Like to see that we can play Jahmyr Gibbs in captain because he's, like instinctively, I think Jahmyr Gibbs probably the first place that I want to go if I'm hand building. Like you just see the price tag on Jahmyr Gibbs. He looks like a great captain option. So yeah, it's good to see Jahmyr Gibbs looking good in the Sims.
All of these start with Gibbs. So let's see what makes them different, because if you look at the cash percentage, right? These are lineups that have got to be in some sense contrarian, because with those low cash probabilities, there's something, but they also have pretty respectable win rates. So Gibbs, St. Brown, Meyers, Jacobs, Lions D, Michael Mayer. That doesn't even seem that contrarian. Gibbs, St. Brown, Goff, Lions, Laporta, Tucker. Yeah, none of these. Yeah, there you can sort by cash percentage. So like that one, go back to the top cash percentage one, Jordan. St. Brown, Gibbs, Goff, Jacobs, Lions, and Trey Tucker. So yeah, definitely higher ownership sum. That actually not a terrible lineup. Kind of love that.
I used to always do the lineup generator VOD, and when I would run the lineup generator, I used to choose for Showdown slates doing contrarian lineups. I ultimately found that I can find lineups like my favorite lineups are the ones that are in the chalky bucket. So like you're using a bunch of players that project well point per dollar that people are going to want to play, but then leaving salary on the table, like using other things to get different rather than using like really low owned plays. And I think this kind of reflects that. Like you're getting to a lot of the best plays on the slate, just like the top projected guys, the top point per dollar guys. You're just putting them in lineups where you're not expecting to be duped a ton. And these ones you can see a lot of our top ROI lineups are duped some, but they're just not duped.
Well, these
like
aren't the top ROI. These
times.
Jordan sorted by cash percentage, so that's why these ones are duped a ton.
Okay, gotcha.
But to your point, yeah, exactly. Like, okay, do this, Jordan. Sort by win percentage. I love this tool. So that one has a really high win probability, but it's also, you know, was duped 10 times when we did the contest generator. But at the same time, do you care that much? I mean, that looks like a really nice lineup across the board. 189 Simdar, like that just looks like a good lineup.
Ultimately, all we care about, like the most important column when you're doing this, and I don't know if you guys have started watching Greg's sim videos, but I'd recommend it because he's winning all of the money. The column that he sorts by, the column that we all sort by, is simulated ROI, and that's going to, you know, give you an idea of, is this lineup too duped? Like, is this lineup duped so many times that it's no longer positive EV, and you can get an idea of which lineups are ultimately the best. And sometimes some of those lineups that have the highest simulated ROI, you're going to have some dupes in there. It's, you know, now that we have, you know, when I was not using a simulator tool, the biggest thing I was looking for is, or one of, you know, a lineup that has a chance to win and won't be duped a lot. But now we have, this is a more advanced tool so that you can kind of let this tell you, like, how duped should this lineup be, and or how many times can this lineup be duped and still be plus EV. And this will give you an idea of how many times the lineup can be duped and still be plus EV.
Absolutely. Jordan, before we go to the lineup generator, just quick favorite 150. I want to see our exposures. All right, so a lot of Jared Goff, but that's flex. Who's our highest owned captain? Can you scroll down for me? 22% St. Brown. Keep going. 19% Gibbs. Go down a little bit more. I want to see the next highest exposed captain. Goff, one more. A lot of Detroit. Laporta. Wow. Keep going. Okay, so Jacoby Meyers at 10.7% is our highest owned captain for the Raiders.
Interesting.
Yeah. Go to the lineup generator, Jordan. Let's check that out. Let's see what that's spitting out. All right. And by the way, lineup generator you can get on its own if you're
Try
interested.
chalky lineups.
You want to do chalky? Let's do it.
Yeah, just because I want to demonstrate what I was saying before about like how you can find lineups that I really like within the chalky buckets. I think we just do standard projections here.
Right,
but do you want to do? Okay.
No, I think it's awesome that actually, yeah, let's switch it up, because when Matt and I did it this morning, he wanted to try it with Vegas up and with Vegas up and Detroit down. Let's try it. Let's try Detroit up, Vegas down. So meaning this game gets away from Vegas a little bit. Let's see what those lineups look like.
I like it.
Because we already did it this morning the opposite way. See that? Right. I love that lineup. Now, how chalky is it? Go down. Let me see how chalky. Not even that chalky. It's kind of in the middle.
I will say this lineup is going to be duped like a good amount. So the things that I'm typically looking for. So now we know that these lineups are relatively chalky. And as you said, this one's not that chalky, but this one is going to be duped a lot just because the only real low owned play here is Hunter Renfrow. But you're using basically the full salary. So I would imagine this one is going to be duped at least a little bit. Try save a couple and see if you can find any that are using 49,000 or less, Jordan, of salary.
Now, granted, we did do chalky lineups, so
I know, but so here you go. So you can find lineups that are going to be not duped a ton, but are still using players that project really well or project.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. And so like that's what you're seeing here. Now this one is leaving a ton of salary on the table.
Keep going, Jordan.
Yeah. So this is, it's pretty interesting to see some of these lineups are like, yeah, you're playing all the best plays and you're still leaving salary on the table. Still not going to be duped a ton. Here's another great example.
Wow. And by the way, guys, you can, if you're wondering, you see the optimal projection down there for each lineup, ownership, how chalky or contrarian it is. Do me a favor, Jordan, so I can see all of our exposures through this. Go and just save 20 lineups. Let's go to the exposures page. Then you can, once you save all the lineups you like, you can upload it to CSV. Drop it right into DraftKings or FanDuel. One thing I like about this too is that you have the option to just go back and then run more lineups with a different set of projections, a different scenario. You could run chalky, you can run contrarian. All right, so this looks different than the sim. We went chalky lineups. A lot of Lions, and we played Lions up, right? So that's why we have Lions defense.
That makes sense. Yep.
Gibbs, St. Brown, Goff. I mean, this really all makes sense. 45% Gibbs captain, that makes sense. If you expect, this is why adjusting the projections is so cool. 45% gives a captain on 20 lineups makes a whole lot of sense if you're adjusting the spread of this game by 6 points, you know?
Yep. Exactly.
Cool. Adams 33%. Jacobs 23. So yeah, Michael Mayer 23. Not a ton of Meyers. There's our boy, 12% Craig Reynolds, Neil.
I see. This is a tool that I would use, and I have used it on slates when I'm not on live before lock. I have trouble using it while I'm on the show because it's like, because I like to think about the lineups and like pick specifically lineups that I like, and it's hard for me to do while I'm on a show. But this is a tool that you can very easily just like go through, pick your favorite lineups from the lineup chart. You don't have to just use like the first 20 it gives you. You can go through and hand pick whichever lineups you want and get a lot of really great showdown lineups.
Favorite captain, optimal captain, as always, to wrap this show up. And love you guys. Appreciate you hanging with us as always. Hopefully someone takes something big down today, be it on Owner's Box, DraftKings, FanDuel. If FanDuel's working, I see chat going nuts about FanDuel right now. Favorite captain, optimal captain.
I'm going to go favorite captain, Jahmyr Gibbs, optimal captain, Jahmyr Gibbs. How about you?
Yeah.
I'll throw out Michael Mayer as a contrarian option, but I'll throw it back to you. Sorry.
All right. So here's the thing. I agree with you, but I'll just go different because, right?
Yep.
Devontae Adams, favorite.
I like that. That's a totally like pretty contrarian. Like he's probably not going to get a ton of ownership. I like it.
He should be getting more, but kind of going against the tools on this one. I'll go Devontae Adams. If he ends up having one of those 16 target games or something insane and they're playing from behind, you'll probably want the guy. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Hey, follow Neil at Player Q DFS. You all right, Jordan? What's going on over there?
I didn't
good?
see it.
All right. Follow me at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D. Owner's Box link down there. If you got to turn the ad blocker off, go for it. And all of our tools, whatever you want, whether it's, lower access point, entry, we got you. Whatever it is, 20% off all of our NBA tools too. Good luck. Yo, hit us up at Stochastic HOF. If you win something, rocking that avatar, get your free month. Let us shout you out on the Sunday Deeper Dive when we do the Hall of Fame segment. We'll see you guys back here on Thursday night. Peace.